What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be taking a deep look at the attachments in XDefiant that improve our rate of fire. And these are the rapid fire barrel as well as the muzzle booster in the muzzle category. And at first glance, these seem very straightforward, super basic, and I guess they kind of are. However, I actually found out some very interesting information about these, especially when it comes to recoil, because they don't work the way that they're advertised. So diving right in, with the rapid fire barrel, this one will improve our rate of fire by 5%, while harming our vertical and horizontal recoil control values by 20%. And then the muzzle booster is basically the same thing, but just cut all those values in half. So a 2.5% increase to our rate of fire and a 10% reduction to our horizontal and vertical recoil control. And it is worth noting, these do stack as well. You can use both of these combined, and it is an additive change. So when you stack these together, you'll see an exactly 7.5% increase to rate of fire, and you should be seeing a 30% reduction to both horizontal and vertical recoil. Now, one of the big questions is, how much does this affect your time to kill potential on a gun? And is it worth it to be using this just for that reduction to your time to kill value? Now, I don't want to completely overwhelm you with numbers, so we're just going to be looking at the rapid fire barrel at a 5% increase to our rate of fire and how that impacts our time to kill potential. If you want to know what the muzzle booster does, just split the difference here. And like I said, you could stack and get a very slightly better improvement to this as well. But the main thing I want to point out, just looking at the assault rifles here, in green is where I've got the time to kill with the rapid fire barrel equipped, whereas before that, it's without the rapid fire barrel. And for all of the guns in the game, you're going to be seeing a roughly 14 to 17 millisecond faster time to kill potential, at least within the maximum damage range. So that's literally 1 frame at 60 FPS or 2 frames at 120 FPS. And that might seem very minor, and at the end of the day, sure, it is a very minor change, but when it comes to time to kill in games like XDefiant or like Call of Duty, for instance, oftentimes gunfights will actually come down to that last frame or the last couple of frames, and therefore, even with a 14 to 17 millisecond time to kill difference, this will absolutely impact the outcome of some really close gunfights. Now, I'm not going to act like most gunfights come down to that last frame. It is going to be fairly rare that you run into that situation, but they do come up more often than you might think. Overall, though, I wouldn't say the primary benefit of the rapid fire barrel or the muzzle booster is just to your raw time to kill potential. That is one nice element with it, but more importantly, when you increase your fire rate, this has the potential of increasing the consistency with your gun because there's going to be a smaller period of time between each shot, and this means there's less time between each shot to end up off target if you started off on target. Now again, with a 5% change here with the rapid fire barrel, it's not going to make all the difference in the world or anything, but the difference is there and it's absolutely perceivable. And just looking at the upsides to this with the rate of fire improvement, there's really not much reason to not improve your rate of fire, even if it's only slightly helping with your time to kill and slightly helping with your consistency of hitting shots. However, in most FPS games, when you have a faster fire rate, inherently you're going to be seeing more overall recoil or a faster climb with your recoil pattern, just due to the fact that those shots are coming out faster and there's less time for a recenter between each shot. In saying that, with XDefiant, recenter works very different. I have covered this in great detail. Perhaps I'll leave a link to that video in the description of this video if you want to check out more details. But in XDefiant, recoil recovery doesn't kick in until after you stop firing, and it only kicks in if there's 0 input to your aim, and there's always going to be an input, and as a result, recoil recovery isn't really a relevant stat right now in XDefiant. And this also means you don't see that inherent downside with a faster rate of fire, where you end up with a higher overall magnitude of recoil simply due to the fact that you have that higher rate of fire. Now, technically, if you did have the same magnitude of recoil as without the rapid fire barrel, so if you're firing a full magazine going from point A to point, and you have that same magnitude of recoil, but you get there a little bit faster due to the fact that you're firing faster, then technically the rate of climb would be faster with rapid fire, and that could be mentioned as a downside. But this is where I found the really interesting results with these attachments in XDefiant currently. It appears we're actually seeing the opposite effect to our recoil as what's stated in the game. So let's start off with a comparison of the base recoil pattern on the ACR 6.8 compared to the muzzle booster attachment, which gives us that 2% increase to rate of fire, and it's meant to harm our vertical and horizontal recoil control by 10%. It turns out though, when looking at this recoil plot, we have consistently less vertical recoil, and I was also able to measure the horizontal deviation in pixels here, and it turns out we're also seeing less horizontal deviation, and in both these cases, it turned out to be a roughly 10% improvement to both of those areas. So as far as I can tell here, as of right now, the muzzle booster is actually helping our horizontal and vertical recoil control by 10%. And I thought that was a bit strange, but I wanted to move on and test the rapid fire barrel, and I saw the exact same story here. We're seeing about a 20% improvement to horizontal and vertical recoil control when using the rapid fire barrel, and you can see those bullets are much closer together than the base recoil pattern. And that trend continues when you stack rapid fire and the muzzle booster. We see a roughly 30% improvement to our horizontal and vertical recoil values. Now, my best guess is they've simply got these values flipped unintentionally in the background, since when I do the pixel count measurements, it comes out to almost exactly 10%, 20%, and 30% with each of these tests that I did, and it corresponds perfectly to the negative values that are meant to be applied. But perhaps there's just something else funky going on with how they handle recoil in this game that's causing this opposite looking effect to take place. But overall, what this means is, in the game's current state at least, there is no downside to using these rate of fire boosting attachments. It's all upsides, and these are some pretty strong upsides as well when you put them all together. So I would say if you've got these attachments unlocked, there's really no downside to not using them unless you're looking at an opportunity cost trade-off, like perhaps you want to stay off the radar and you want a suppressor instead of a muzzle booster. Well, in that case, there's obviously nothing wrong with running the suppressor, and you're not going to be missing out on that much by not taking the muzzle booster. Also, it is worth mentioning, when it comes to the barrel department, for the guns that see a reduction in the number of shots to kill while using the heavy barrel, these are always going to yield a better time to kill potential than even stacking the rate of fire attachments together for that gun. So just as an example here, with the MP7, if I use the heavy barrel, while it does reduce my rate of fire, it also allows me to get a 5-shot kill up close rather than a 6-shot kill, so I'm killing in 305 milliseconds. Whereas if I stack both the muzzle booster and the rapid fire barrel, my 6-shot time to kill potential is 319 milliseconds, so it's not as fast as that heavy barrel. In saying that though, if you saw my heavy barrel video, you'll know that not very many guns in this game are actually seeing a real benefit to the number of shots to kill when using heavy barrel. And again, that's another XDefiant video I'll try to remember to leave a link to in the description of this video in case you guys missed that. It's a super important one. But what that means is, for any gun that doesn't benefit from heavy barrel, it looks like the rapid fire barrel is going to be the next obvious choice. And there we go. That's going to wrap it up here. Although there is one last little note I just wanted to point out here. When it comes to the burst guns, if you're using these rate of fire attachments, it will only impact the rate of fire within the burst, not your burst delay. That burst delay remains consistent. And aside from that, that's everything I've got today when it comes to these rate of fire boosting attachments. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated if they end up changing this and making it so you actually see more recoil rather than less recoil. But until they do that, at least, you should probably consider popping these on, because it's all upsides right now. And with that, this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the rate of fire boosting attachments so far in XDefiant? Have you also noticed that your guns become more accurate when you start to use these? And even if they were working as intended, and if we were increasing our recoil rather than decreasing it, do you still think they would be worthwhile to use? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.